much, gentlemen, for joining me. So how much of Bandish Bandits are you when it comes to your real life persona?
I think we definitely are the more bandits than the Bandish. we're quite bad, and we'll talk more about that later. But today we'll talk about the show Bandish Bandits.
Exactly. So, Amrit, you've written this show.
Yes.
Where did this idea? It's not a Romeo Juliet. It's like I was talking to Shreya and Ritvik. I said it's like a modern day Hum Dil De Chuke Sanam without the triangle in it. So and we haven't seen musical romances for the longest time. Though Hindi films are like musicals and romances are still वो भी बहुत gritty हो गए हैं. So where did this idea come from?
So I think, the idea, something that I even mentioned in the trailer launch yesterday, I think the idea was the नींव, जो idea की नींव होती है, वो एक story से आई थी, जो कि हमारे एक दोस्त ने हमें कही थी about their father, and who had studied a rag for 19 years, was working on a rag for 19 years, and right about after that said to his son that, I think I'm just beginning to understand what it's all about. And that, I think got Anand and me very excited. And while that was just a germ of an idea or a seed of an idea, the idea of juxtaposing someone who was so involved in their craft with someone with a point of view which is so modern today, which is about instant success, about likes and about views, and, people becoming stars and celebrities overnight. And without demeaning that part, without kind of looking down on the idea of what today some of the most incredible artists, I would call them, that are on TikTok or are on YouTube or are on Facebook or on Instagram, and have acquired such a huge following, for whether it's a talent of theirs, whether it's something that they want to say or speak, but just the idea of juxtaposing someone who, believes that art is discipline, and pitting them against a character who believes that art is all about expression, freedom, was kind of where it all started. And then, of course, I'm glad you bring up Hum Dil De Chuke Sanam, because I think one of the very initial thoughts was, can we create something like that? In fact, I remember when we pitched this story to Amazon, I think it was at Indigo Delhi about 4.5 years ago. One of our opening lines was that we'd like to make a version of Hum Dil De Chuke Sanam. So I'm really glad that you're referring to it like that. But yes, in a sense, it's a romantic story. It has a lot of music. It has a very strong family drama. So I think it's one of those few shows on the OTT platform that actually can be viewed within a community of the family. And everyone from a grandfather to a father to a son to a child, everyone can watch it all sitting together. So yeah, that's in essence what the show. That's the beginning of the show.
And I mean, yes, of course, Hum Dil De Chuke Sanam. And also, initially when I started reporting, I had to cover a whole lot of classical concerts. मुझे राग कुछ नहीं समझ आता था, but मैं बैठती थी और cover करती थी. But now, nobody ever covers a classical concert, because I really don't know where the baithaks are happening. Is anybody even going to watch them? Because it's, as you said, instant gratification. It's in the palm of your hand. You're watching concerts in the palm of your hand. So, Anand, I mean, it's a series. It's like a mini film. You've been an actor and a director. So what was it like?
So first of all, it's not a mini film. It's multiple films.
Multiple films. It's a series, but multiple films. It's like 5 films.
Yeah, exactly. That's the amount of content that you will end up seeing. I'll just add to things that even Amrit was saying, that, Amrit and I have been trying to create content for the youth that resonates with them right from the word go. All our content has been that. And Bandish Bandits is another step in that direction, because the Gen Z, unlike any other generation before them, is constantly, and the Indian Gen Z is actually the biggest population of the world, so to say. And they are constantly being reminded of this, this dwand, so to say, of how much, what is it to be an Indian today, because they don't have the shackles of say the freedom struggle, or they don't have to worry about the emergency anymore. They are born into an India with a smartphone in their hands. So what does it mean to be an Indian? And that's where the characters of Tamanna and Radhe really are, where they are constantly jostling between what is being thrown to them by the world that is out there, and by the traditions that they are born with. No matter who you are in India, there are certain traditions that we are all born with. And we thought that's the best way to kind of really engage with young watchers. And what better vehicle than music? And and just as beyond just being makers ourselves, we are also avid watchers. Both Amrit and I are cinephils. We are series phils. We are content phils. We keep watching every kind of content. We are genre agnostic ourselves. We watch everything under the sun. And we kind of realized that young people need to be represented far more in the content. Their voices need to be heard far more, and I think that's where Bandish Bandits really hopefully will resonate with them.
No, which is so true, because it's, we do see the representation of the youth as these wayward people who have no agenda. जैसे वो दिखाया जाता है. I think it happens with every generation. I think back in 60s, 80s, 90s, they all felt that the new generation is. But it's really nice because you've shown two facets: somebody who's born in a traditional family and somebody who's a go-getter, is ambitious and represents, and how the two of them come together. And what was really nice, when I spoke to your lead actors, they said,
Right.
we were chosen amongst a lot of people, and both of you did not even bother to find out ki inki social media presence kya hai, because today that's the norm. What are the numbers, who's following you? So tell us, what was your audition process? What was the idea behind it? Because otherwise somebody would have gone for a known person instead of just getting fresh talent on board.
I think a lot of sorry, Amrit.
No, continue. I'll go after.
So I'm saying a lot of credit goes to Amazon Prime actually to really trust us with it, because they gave us the free hand to go and look for new talent. There were no constraints on us in terms of what you just spoke about, and a grueling audition process was in place, where people were auditioned not just from Bombay. Of course, in Bombay you have people from all over India, but we actually got audition processes happening in other cities too, so that we don't miss out on good content. And of course, within the people that we auditioned, we had series of auditions, and the last two stages, Amrit and I were involved in. We were actually there to interact with the performers, and we are so grateful that the people who didn't make it were still grateful. They were so generous with us with their time to be around, and we almost did like a theater workshop with them. We almost like match the following. We went, okay, now you are her, are they? And you are this, and you are that, and within that, we found Shreya and Ritvik, two immensely talented youngsters, two absolutely fresh, talented youngsters that we are so happy to present to the world. We are very proud of them, and we know that they will be so successful come the 4th of August. Amrit?
And it should end that debate कि outsiders को chance नहीं मिलता है.
Well, yeah, in fact, I'm glad that you brought this up, because I just feel like, when we wrote these characters and created them, I think we never had in our mind that these would be people that are known faces. So in fact, I would say that even while it was very gracious and generous of Amazon to allow us that, I think very early on from the writing process itself, I think, the big thing for us was that, and you're right, that lots of every generation feels like, the next generation is irresponsible or doesn't know where they're going or what they're up to. But I think there is one fundamental difference that Anand brought out earlier, is that this is a digitally native smartphone using audience at the early ages of their life, which we were not. Which basically tells them that they have access to a lot more information than any other generation had at their ages as they were growing up. So really for us, one of the key elements was that I think, we wanted to create a story and characters that are very relatable to a boy in a middle-class family in Bombay, to maybe a slightly upper middle-class girl in Indore, and to a Dadaji sitting in West Bengal with his family, who, has had a bout of Rabindra Sangeet in them. So, I think the idea was very much to create a story that was relatable to a large audience of India, as opposed to it being a niche story. While, of course, we have young people as our protagonists, but I really think that, this is something that a lot of people will be able to watch. And we have a very stellar support cast along with our absolutely two new young talents. But I think that just the idea that we always wanted to cast fresh faces for this show, because while our treatment and presentation is very much our ode to Dharma and Yashraj and in the world of Hum Dil De Chuke Sanam, I think that the story is very, very contemporary and very much talking about the challenges that young people face today.
And Anand, you've acted in films also. Yeah, तो आपने पूरी 5 पिक्चरें एक साथ कर दी है ना, which would have been like the song, dance, drama, emotion, जैसे describe करते हैं. So what's easier for you, direction or acting?
Easier? I don't think. I think in terms of easy and difficult, because art always makes you feel like life is so much tough when you're doing it, and then that's the greatest joy you ever can get. So for me, right now, I'm really enjoying being a filmmaker. I'm really enjoying being a writer. Amrit and I have been doing some very interesting work in the last 5 years. I feel like our voices are very relevant right now. There will be a time, Pooja, when Amrit and I will be too old to tell, current stories. We will need newer writers to write for us. At that time, maybe we can just be producers, and Amrit and I will start our acting careers again. Till then, I'm very happy to let my acting career take a little bit of a backseat. Not that I'm not acting, I keep doing ads, I'm doing theater once in a while, but the kind of the nectar that I have tasted of the kind of content that is out there, we keep interacting with people who are far younger than us, and the learnings we get from them, and the understanding that we get of the India which is new. I feel like there's so much to say, and there is just so little time. So where's the time to act?
And also, with like Amazon has given us so many originals and new talent, newer voices, newer storylines. Do you also feel with this platform like there is a plethora of content available? Because in films you get a little restricted, though they also are taking those steps towards showing different content, but you can't go the full hog because sometimes you have to keep in mind the formula, the box office, audience kaise react karegi. But now with this platform, do you feel the world is yours? Just explore anything you want to.
I'd say yes, I think but Amrit, go first.
Sorry. No, so I think you're right. I think for us, I mean, and Anand can address this as a director for this show, and I can as a writer on this show, is I think that the fundamental difference, right, as you pointed out, between the limitations of film and the liberation of writing for a series is very much the idea that you can explore a lot more in depth about characters, about certain stories, about, you spoke about classical music. Now, I had no idea about classical music before I got down to writing this show. In fact, to be very honest, I didn't even like classical music before I started writing this show. And for me, I was just interested in... And I used to always find it, a little cumbersome and not necessarily enjoyable. And I have to say that, of course, I have found a deep sense of respect and appreciation for the art through my learnings as a writer, which again, I feel was because there was a series and because one had to go into the depths of understanding the background and the world. And it just wasn't about one hero, one heroine, one villain, and kind of working within the typical format of a 3-act structure, where, by minute 10 or 12, you must introduce the conflict of the film. Then you must keep chasing your protagonist to make sure that he's going over each obstacle that is coming in his way and kind of, getting to the goal. While the principles of writing are, of course, the same, I do think that we got an opportunity to learn more. I think this was one of the greatest learning experiences for me as a writer, to understand and see and learn things about the world that I didn't know before. And I think that had a lot to do with the fact that I had the opportunity to write 350 and 400 pages as opposed to 120 pages.
Anand.
So I think the onus on how much this liberation stays is going to be on the audience. If the audience does not try to see formulaic stuff, so they don't come for OTT for a specific kind of content, and they don't go for films for a specific kind of content, and they don't go to their broadcasters for a specific kind of content, then the makers will keep making content which is genre agnostic, which will be new and fresh, because the audience will have to demand that. The audience will have to support content which is going away from the mainstream, away from what generally works. Even OTT, we were talking about this before we went on air, Pooja, that, OTT also has started kind of getting some amount of formulaic things that are happening, Luckily, we are still in a phase where there is a plethora of opportunities open for all kinds of content. It will remain like that if the audiences keep consuming that too. If they keep looking at only a specific kind of content on the OTT, uh, at the end of the day, it's a business that people have to move forward. So the onus is on the audience. तो हमारा show जरूर देखें.
And lastly, show music की बात है, and I belong to a generation that grew up to listening to R.D. Burman. Like उनके गाने मेरी रगों में है types. So Shankar Ehsaan Loy's melody always reminded me of Pancham. So what was it getting these three on board? And of course, you have Deen Asiruddin Shah, jo hamare time ke, Mirch Masala and Masoom, and suddenly he's playing the protagonist. I'm not going to give out much. He's like one of the main people, the pillars.
Amrit, you talk about SCL, I'll talk about Nasir sir.
that works well. I think so. Pooja, for SCL, to be honest, there are three worlds of music in the show. There is a world of classical music. There is a world of pop music or contemporary music, and there is a world of fusion. And when we started, and the thing about the music is it's very much part of the drama of the writing. It's not something like in many of our Hindi films, which is also great fun, and that's kind of what we've also grown up on and love the song and dance culture. But this idea कि एक कहानी चल रही होती है, फिर एक super beautiful गाना होता है, कहानी रुकती है, वो गाना खत्म होता है, फिर हम वापस चलती है. In this show, that was not the case. The idea was that each musical piece and set piece had to be very much part of the storytelling, and to be
take
honest,
the story forward,
and take the story forward. And to be honest, it's unfair to say that this is a classical music show. And yes, there is a background of classical music because one of our protagonists comes from a very revered classical music family. But I think there are all kinds of music in this show. So because the idea was to make it accessible. So when we thought about all these factors and we thought about who could be the right music composers or something like this, which would make the music accessible to young audiences and mass audiences across India, someone who could do justice to getting the authenticity of classical music right, yet getting us the absolute masti and maza of contemporary fun, high tempo, fast songs. We really couldn't think of anyone else who would do justice to it like this. So to be honest, Shankar Ehsaan Loy was a very obvious choice to go to for something like this. And, I don't want to speak too much of the music as before it comes out, but I think they've done quite an exceptional job keeping the scale and size of the music of this show. So yeah, really kudos to them for that.
And I'm sure because from classical to pop, their music blends it all. If you see Rockford, Kal Ho Na Ho, Zindagi Milegi Na Dobara, it's a beautiful fusion.
And what's great about them is that they have a great understanding of narrative, about storytelling. They're not just creating songs, they're creating music for the series. They're creating music for their films. And that is something that they've done so brilliantly. And just among them, Shankar is just an ocean of knowledge and of understanding of music, not just the classical music parts of Hindustani and Carnatic, but also world music. So when you're with him, you feel like you are with the Google of music. You just tell him something and he'll start humming, that will become a song and that will, just wow everyone. So Amrit and I were like little kids in a candy shop.
No, and just to add to what Anand is saying, Pooja, there were instances, to be honest, where Shankar gave us ideas for scenes based on music. Yeah. So we in fact went back, and after a conversation, like Anand said, like the Google of music, we'd go and search up our history and figure stuff out, and we'd literally go and rework a scene, because in passing he would tell us like 3 lines of an anecdote or something about how a technical aspect of music works, and we'd just be blown away and say, oh my god, that would fit so beautifully with our story, let's take this and let's rewrite the scene this way. So he really did contribute a lot to the creative of the show.
And talking about Nasir sir, I completely disagree with you. Nasir sir तो हमारे भी ज़माने के, और Nasir sir तो Gen Z के भी ज़माने के, वो हर ज़माने के. और उनके साथ सबसे amazing चीज़ ये रही कि the most amazing thing about that man is, and what kind of teaches you about great artists, is that they never let the bhar of being who they are come into their performance or when they are on a set. He never let any of the other actors feel any less important. He never, was bothered only about himself. The amount of contribution Nasir sir has made to the scenes that he's in, to not just with his performance, but also with sometimes the way it was blocked, with sometimes the way the weight of the scene needs to be balanced and adjusted. And it's so amazing to have, and not just him, Atul Kulkarni, Sheba Chadda, Rajesh Telang, Amit Mistry, Kunal Roy Kapoor. These guys have had such an immense amount of experience in the work that they have done all these years. And when they came on board, they don't just come on board as actors, they come on board as collaborators. And Amrit and I were so happy to take their inputs into those scenes and make those scenes so much better and so deeper than only Amrit and I could have ever intended them to be.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank
and
you.
just to add one thing about Nasir sir, my biggest learning from him was that at his age and after having achieved the kind of stuff that he has achieved, his passion for his work and his dedication to learning just blew me away, because like when we are of course relatively much younger, much less experienced, much less, way less successful. And for us, sometimes, when we'd say, okay, this is not a big deal. Like, let's just move on from this. And for him to sit and even talk about a single line of dialogue and ask questions on, but why is my character saying this? Why can't I say it this way? Or if I say it this way, will this make sense? And it was just an amazing, humbling experience to see the passion that this man has, even at this age, for a single line of dialogue, which 0.9 out of 10 times everyone is just going to go through as if it was part of the scene. But his dedication to even that was just amazing.
I'm sure, and it shows. I mean, that's why he's achieved what he has. And I loved what he told the youngsters, that don't feel so uncomfortable. I don't take it as a compliment. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Anyways, thank you so much. All the very best. And
you.
I'm sure Bandits is going to strike the right note with all. At least with me, it already has. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.